Hey, Dragon Folk. How are we all doing today? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Welcome on back. It's been far too long, honestly. And I've been so busy with work and moving and all that stuff. I'm finally in, as you can see here. I'm finally in our new place. I'm in Colorado, living it up, right? I've got to meet some fantastic people while I've been here, such as Joey from Decks and Drafts, although he, according to his Twitter, will no longer be known as Decks and Drafts, so it's just Joey. I've met him. I've met a whole bunch of people up in the Longmont area, up in those. It's been super great and super fun. I've been having a great time. But we've got busy. So I really have not had a lot of time to make content creation, and I wanted to kind of give you guys an update and also talk about something that I personally feel is very, very important to me and could be important to all of you as well, as far as the trading card game scene, or even just, even if you're just strictly talking about Flesh and Blood, or if you're strictly talking about things like Magic the Gathering. And that is the value in your cards. I know that a lot of people, when they hear the word value, there are a lot of people who strictly go directly to the financial value of cards. And that makes sense. I mean, your cards cost you money to get, and they're going to cost you money to sell. Maybe they'll make you a ton of money if you sell them, right? Maybe you want to do this as a living and you want to actually just start selling cards. I think a lot of that is very, very cool, and I think if you have the gumption and the insane amount of buffer as far as finances go, to do something like that, then by all means, right? But when I mean value in general, I'm talking about something like the value of what a card is worth to you. Even if it's something that is not worth it financially to some other people. And I think this is where a lot of my own collections and my own personal play style of how I like to play the game comes into factor here. For those of you who do not know, on the channel here, we do tend to talk, or at least I've switched a lot of my content to be strictly talking about Commoner in the Flesh and Blood TCG, which is a format which only allows your deck to have common cards, and then you can have rare cards, which is like the uncommons in Magic the Gathering, for your equipment and for your hero. So you have access to those. It's the very budget version of playing Flesh and Blood, without having to dedicate all that money into your equipment and all that other stuff. You can essentially just make a deck for like $10 and be able to go play in a commoner event. Even the highest tier decks are about that rate. So something that I think is really, really awesome is utilizing that to the best of your advantage. On top of Commoner, I also like to eventually move myself into Clash. Clash is a format that was originally created by Ethan Van Sant and several other creators who essentially came together to create a format that was like Commoner Plus. It's essentially just a way for you to kind of get a general feel for what a hero would be like in a Blitz format, without having to buy all the legendary equipment and so on and so forth. The only things that need to be that could be of any rarity are your hero, your hero's weapon, and their mentor or their specializations. It could be any rarity, but otherwise you were only playing with rares and commons. So essentially it was just Commoner Plus, or really Blitz minus, right? Like just took out a little bit of that stuff in order for you to play it. And Clash is something that hasn't seen a lot of, it really has not seen a lot of play in a long time, probably since Uprising's release is back in like 2022. And it's something that I still want to like take a look into. I know there are a couple people who are still kind of like keeping the format alive, which I do really appreciate. But I don't personally have anything to do with it. Clash is not an official format for Flesh and Blood, so that is not something that they are keeping up to date or bringing as side events or anything of the sort. It is just strictly going to be, for that. But Clash, again, is another budget format that Flesh and Blood has, that if you know where to look, you can certainly find places to play. And you can even play it on Talishar. Talishar does have a Clash section that you can join into and play. So it is available for play. On top of that, though, I do also still play Magic the Gathering, but I have switched a lot of my focus in Magic from cool, competitive Pioneer and standard deck construction to actually dropping it all the way down to Pauper and Pauper EDH. And those are both, again, budget formats for Magic the Gathering. Pauper being you can only use common cards from the entirety of Magic's history. It's just legacy, but only commons. And then you have Pauper EDH and or PEDH as it's sometimes called. PEDH or PDH, sorry. PDH is Pauper Commander. Commander is probably the most popular format in Magic the Gathering as of right now due to its social aspect and due to its just general creativity of deck building with 100 cards and being able to kind of make something super fun out of it. But with Pauper EDH, you get to kind of take out all the rares and mythics that exist in regular EDH, stuff that would have cost you a ton of money to get. And instead of that, you start playing Pauper EDH or PDH. PDH has uncommons as their creatures. Any uncommon creature can be your commander, which is really, really cool. It doesn't have to be a legendary, so that opens up a little bit more for different cards to be different, have different kind of like abilities and ways to build your deck. And then, of course, your main deck can only consist of commons. So I think the real question that a lot of people would ask, right, when you see so many people who are playing these games competitively, and you see so many people who are buying, hundreds of thousands of dollars of cards to tweak their deck to be the best it can be, so they can go win tournaments, or they can go be the best their deck can ever become. Why would somebody who is focused on the more competitive scene drop down to the budget formats and stop playing in the big stuff, right? I haven't gone to a Classic Constructed event in a long while. Granted, that's strictly due to a time constraint for that. But I have not gone to one in a while. And to be honest, I might not, ever. I don't know. I want to start playing more Classic Constructed as well, just because in Flesh and Blood, Classic Constructed is kind of like the format for the competitive scene. And I do want to at least have a constructed, a Classic Constructed deck to be able to play. But I've actually switched down to the Commoner and Clash formats in Flesh and Blood, as well as the Pauper and the Pauper EDH formats in Magic the Gathering, simply because I can save money that way. And I know there are ways for you to save money in both of these TCGs, but let's be entirely honest, with the amount of different things that come out on such an insane basis, you're usually buying a decent amount of cards every month, and you're buying them strictly so that you can play, the hot new thing, and you can try that stuff out competitively. And I think that I've had almost a revelation that moving down to those other formats has really helped out my mood towards these games. I've found value in my commons and my uncommon cards. Unlike, most places that consider those cards bulk, I'm instead utilizing that same bulk as a resource for me to still have fun and play the game. And in most cases, you don't see that a lot. A lot of people who are playing with commons or uncommons, you're normally doing that strictly because, maybe those are the only cards you have. But there's so much push to start getting up there in the game and really putting in some extra money and investing into it. And that's completely understandable. This is a hobby, and it is a competitive hobby. And if you are going to be competitive and want to win big cash prizes like $10,000 or, a gold foil at a ProQuest, you're going to want to have a good deck and be able to pilot it really well. I just think that playing it from a budget perspective is also super, super neat for people who are getting into the game. I love the entry level concept as far as Pauper and Commoner go for both games respectively, because you can essentially teach people how to play both of these games without having to spend an atrocious amount of money. Something like the Blitz decks for Flesh and Blood have always been a kind of one-off, like, meh thing for me. They're $11 ready to play right out the box decks, and I think that's so incredibly cool. But the problem is that if you play a Riptide Outsiders deck, Blitz deck that you got from the box, and then you go play a Phi Blitz deck from out of its box, they're normally not specifically made to go against one another. Normally, the Outsiders heroes are good to go against the Outsiders heroes. That's how those decks are constructed. The Uprising heroes are good to go up against the other Uprising heroes, and so on and so forth. But against one another, you normally are kind of losing out in a little bit of factor there as far as the equipment and the abilities go. But another thing I don't like about the Blitz decks is that they're just poorly made commoner decks, is really what they are. I think you could get more. I think you can get more out of spending $10, right around the same price as you would for a Blitz deck, like a pre-constructed Blitz deck, and be able to actually learn a little bit more about how the hero works with a more concise constructed deck for a format that you don't have to put any extra money into. Because let's be honest, right? You start playing Kano in Blitz. You buy the $10 Kano Blitz deck, and you go to a Blitz tournament. Do you think you're going to win any of your matches in that Blitz tournament with that $10 deck? Well, of course you're not, right? If you're in a pre-constructed event, which I also think is a very cool, the casual thing that Flesh and Blood is at least pushing out, is being able to do that. That's a fun way to utilize sales of those decks, but it again gives kind of like a false understanding of what these decks are supposed to be. You play them out of the box, but you do have to upgrade them if you want to play them competitively in the Blitz format. You cannot continue to play that $10 Kano deck and win a ProQuest. I've never seen it happen. It very well could happen, but I highly doubt it because other decks are highly tuned with higher power cards that cost hundreds of dollars, and you may not be in the market to get those cards. And if you're not, right, then you can't really compete as well as other people can, which is kind of where it leads me with Commoner as far as that goes, or even Clash if people can do Clash events, because those two formats are easy to get into. Their budgets are significantly less. I would say probably a Clash deck can aim about like $30, maybe a little bit less, because you're still dealing with bulk for the most part. The only thing that you're not dealing with in bulk is the mentors, the weapons, the specializations, or the heroes, right? So you can play things like the Emperor or Shiana or things like that, but I don't know how many people do. I don't know how well it works in the format. I haven't played a whole lot of Clash, so don't take my word for that. But for the most part, it's still very budget. And because it's still incredibly budget, you can just spend an easy $10 to $30 and have a deck that you know can compete in that format, right? When you buy a $10 commoner deck and you have everything that you need for it, you've got it all set up so that you're able to play your whole commoner deck. It's the most like teched out Ira deck you could possibly make in your life. And you've played it on Talishara 100 times and you've gotten a 90% win rate, which is it's hard to do, but Ira is also really good in the format. a 90% win rate. You can buy that $10 deck and you can know that that deck is competitive in your format. It is, and it will be. There are even times in which you can play decks that don't do very well into the commoner formats, such as like Levia or Bolton or things like that. They don't seem to do very well into the commoner format yet, but in due time, they could receive support, which will allow them to become a little bit better into the format. But overall, you can still play those decks and only have spent $10 to kind of get a general idea about how the hero works and how to play it. And this leads me to kind of my other thing, which I don't want to spend too much time on. I don't want this video to go on for so long. Just mainly doing a quick talking topic that I've wanted to talk about for a while. What playing at a budget level like Commoner, Clash, Pauper, EDH, whatever you like to play, right? What that also does is that opens you up for, one, spending your money in better places. So, for instance, if you're a big investor into TCGs, but you are investing in the wrong things, or maybe you don't know what to invest into, maybe you are, you're not investing in the S&P 500, but instead you're investing in dual lands from, Revised. If that's what you want to do, right, then by all means. But I suggest investing in other things that will make you more money, like the S&P 500, first, before doing anything of that sort. You want to get yourself prepared for when you need to retire, and then you can go about, spending any money as far as collection goes as that time goes on. But I think that what playing these budget formats does for me specifically is, one, it stops me from having to buy the new hot thing every single time it comes out, right? If I needed to buy a new legendary when it comes out and that legendary ends up being $100, I can save myself $100 by not having to buy it because I'm playing a budget format that doesn't use legendaries. So it saves me $100, but technically it doesn't. And the reason it doesn't is come to this point. What playing in these budget formats does for me is it allows me to collect as opposed to play with these cards. Collecting is something that I enjoy a lot. As you've seen several times on the channel here, I like to collect master sets. I like to get every single version of a card and get them set up in binders and just be able to adore them, anytime I want to, and know that I have a full collection of stuff. The thing with that, though, is we get back to the value portion, where a lot of people would say that if I'm trying to do master sets of things like Magic the Gathering in 2023, I'm a madman, and I should be put in the loony bin for even thinking that I can do a master set of Magic the Gathering. Simply because there's so many variants and there's so many different cards, it's going to cost me a crazy amount of money. And that is true. It would cost me a crazy amount of money. Those several videos that I do on regards to collecting everything in a set, that is, those videos do tell you how much money you would need to spend when I made the video, of how much you need to spend in order for you to get the entirety of the master set. And in most cases, it's thousands of dollars for the stuff. And when people view that, especially stuff that's out in 2023, let's just say Wilds of Eldraine, for instance. Wilds of Eldraine, being the new set to come out for Magic the Gathering, is actually something that I think I would like to get, or at least one of the sets I'd like to get. And while I like to collect master sets, I don't exactly always need to have them. I like to kind of piece out the stuff that I like from the set and just collect those portions as well, at least to start, and then I move on from there. But overall, I think what I'm trying to get at is that a lot of people will deem that that value is not there. Because when you're investing into something, the money is about, it's about the return, right? The return of interest. When you get that return on your stuff, right? When your dual land goes from $300 to $400, you have essentially, in a way, made $100 in returns, right? But a lot of the stuff that I will end up buying for master sets will never go up in price. They just won't. Now the extended art cards and the some showcase cards and some special foiling stuff, those will probably go up in price later on because it seems likely that they're not going to print them in those same variants. But who knows, right? That's kind of the unknown that you have with any TCG, is that you don't know whether or not they would print them in the same variant. Flesh and Blood, when I'm doing master sets for Flesh and Blood, they do reprint cards. Findel's Spring Tunic is due for a reprint here in Bright Lights pretty soon. And that's going to get another reprint, but it's not going to be foil. So it's probably just going to be a regular unfoil, like non-foiled tunic. And the only reason it's getting reprinted into there is so that it can have more on the market and kind of entice people to buy the product, right? But the purpose here is that those cards that I purchase for a master set, the only things that are going to go up in value in most cases, especially with Flesh and Blood, are the cold foils, because they're not going to be cold foiled in any other set, right? If I get a cold foil Crown of Providence, that cold foil Crown of Providence is not going to get reprinted in another set ever again. And the only place you're going to be able to find it is in Uprising, right? So when you think about it like that, there are certain things that are good investments and there are certain things that are bad investments. The problem is that the value to me, it's not really a problem, but the problem is that the value to me is much higher when the collection is complete, as opposed to me picking and choosing certain things to collect. For instance, one of my biggest Magic the Gathering collections is currently my collection of the Dark. I do not have a very crazy amount of cards from the Dark, but I'm looking to at least get a playset of every card from the Dark. That includes the Blood Moons, the Goblin Wizards, the City of Shadows, all of them. I want to get a playset of them. And in due time, I will eventually get there. But as of right now, that does not seem to be the case. And I just need to take it one day at a time. The problem is some cards are becoming a little bit harder to find, so their prices are going to continue to go up. But that's collecting. But now that I don't have to spend a lot of money to play competitively, it certainly helps a lot more. Now I'm able to not only help people get into the game for a very low budget, but I can also essentially be able to save myself some money from buying game pieces that I would play to instead buy collection pieces that I would adore much more. I wouldn't have to buy the lowest version of a Findel Spring Tunic in order for me to be like, oh, cool, now I can have a tunic so I can play. Instead, now I can go, well, I want that Rainbow Foil Spring Tunic, so I'm going to go buy it and have it as part of my collection, So that's all up in the air. I'm pretty sure I'm just rambling at this point, but I just wanted to say that for those of you out there who are doing content on, lower budget formats such as Pauper or Pauper EDH or Commoner or even Clash, right? Just know that while a lot of our content seems to not hit as hard as other people in the space, right? Because people want the higher hitting, crazier combo rares and mythics and legendaries and fableds and all that. There's still a spot for it all, and I think that as long as you can comfortably make that happen in your own realm, it would be easy for you, and just do whatever makes you happy is really at the end of the day. I'm not saying that playing with rares or legendaries or mythics is bad. I think you should be able to play with whatever you want to play with. I'm just saying that if you are losing your spark, pun intended, if you're losing your spark in your love for your game, maybe try not looking at it from a financial standpoint and instead start looking at it from a general value standpoint, right? can I still do all of the things that I would normally be able to do with my friends or people at my LGS if I only use common cards? Would you be able to still do a tournament at your LGS with only commons? Would you be able to play a round of Commander with your friends with only commons? The answer is yes. You can spend less money on your stuff so that you can specifically end up being like, you just be, I don't know, more in tune with what your cards are. Kind of take an outward look and find value in things like that. And I think you may see that your outlook towards your game could be much better, right? I want to keep things positive as far as things go. I don't want to talk about cards getting reprints and 8,000 problems with all these things, and why certain cards are going up in price and why cards aren't, and arbitrage in the market. Like, if you don't know how the market of TCGs work at this point, there are several hundred YouTubers that will give you that same information, and I will too if you really want to. But just remember that it's a game, and the game is, you're allowed to have fun in the game. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that fun when they only start thinking about the financial value of the cards, and they stop thinking about the actual true value of the cards you have. So anyway, let me know in the comments down below if you'd enjoyed this little rant of mine. Maybe you agree with me. Maybe you disagree with me. I know there's a lot of people out there who would consider myself wasting money because I buy a bunch of common cards, and common cards are, people throw away common cards half the time. Why would I be getting them so I can utilize them to play? Like, they're obviously not strong if people are throwing them out. Just, you got to take a look at it from a different perspective, and I think that's really going to help. So thank you guys so much for watching. I do really appreciate your support. Thank you so much for your patience. I do want to continue to make more and more videos. Obviously, I'm very time constrained most of the time, so I do apologize if it ends up being very long in between videos, but I hope to eventually get a schedule kind of down where I can start making more stuff and really bringing a lot of that fun TCG, budget vibe to the space where I don't seem to see a lot of it. So again, thank you guys so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. All right, take care and nerd out.